You ever wonder if some of the most revolutionary inventions in history weren't just discovered late, but what if they were discovered way, way earlier and then just lost? Maybe even deliberately erased.
So let's start with this wild question. We all think of plastic as this super modern thing, right? Something that comes from oil refineries and, complicated chemistry. But what if a medieval alchemist, just messing around in his workshop, could have actually stumbled upon it centuries ago? Okay, let's really get into this, because the answer is way more complex, and honestly, pretty surprising. And to get there, we have to start with a much simpler question. What even is plastic?
Right, so the stuff in our water bottles, our keyboards, that's petroleum plastic. That's the modern invention. But scientifically, the word plastic just refers to a whole category of materials, and they're called polymers.
A polymer is really just a material made of these long, repeating chains of molecules. And here's the real kicker. Nature is absolutely full of them. I mean, the cellulose in plants, the silk from a spider, even the DNA inside our own cells. Guess what? Those are all natural polymers.
So, if you go by that definition, medieval folks didn't need an alchemist to invent plastic. They were literally surrounded by it. They were already shaping animal horn, tanning leather, using shellac from insects as a varnish. They even used this stuff called urushi lacquer, which is a natural plastic that's been around for over 9,000 years. Get this, even cheese is technically a moldable, hardenable protein polymer.
In fact, making a simple plastic was totally within their grasp. All an alchemist really needed was milk, some vinegar, and a fire. See, if you heat milk with a little acid, the casein proteins inside it link up into these long polymer chains. That creates a curd that, when you dry it, becomes a hard, moldable material. It's called casein plastic, and honestly, you could make it in your kitchen right now. So the crucial point isn't really if they could make a simple plastic. They could. The real question is, what if they stumbled upon something truly, truly revolutionary?
And this is where that simple question about plastic opens a door to a much deeper, much more fascinating mystery. It's about these incredible, groundbreaking inventions that just kind of flickered into existence, only to be snuffed out before their time.
Which brings us to our main story. It comes from a 2,000-year-old Roman text, and it tells the tale of a craftsman who invented something that sounds impossible even by today's standards: unbreakable glass. The story goes like this. This craftsman presents a glass bowl to the Emperor Tiberius, and then he throws it right on the floor. But instead of shattering into a million pieces, it just dents, like a piece of bronze. And then the guy pulls out a little hammer and just taps the dent out. Good as new.
But the emperor, he wasn't amazed. He was terrified. He asked the inventor, "Does anyone else know how to do this?" The man, so proud, says, "Nope, just me." So, the emperor had him executed, right there on the spot. He was afraid this incredible invention would make precious metals like gold and silver totally worthless and just collapse the entire Roman economy.
You know, this story of vitrum flexible glass, it's been haunting historians for centuries. Was it a real, actual lost technology or just, a story to warn people about innovation? We probably will never know for sure.
But it really makes you wonder, was this just a one-off tragedy, an isolated incident? Or is this part of a bigger, more unsettling pattern? Well, let's move on and see, because things get even weirder in more modern times.
The 20th century is just littered with these kinds of stories. In the 30s, a guy named Royal Rife claimed his machine could shatter cancer cells with radio waves, and then his lab suspiciously burned to the ground. In the 80s, a hairdresser invents a plastic called starlight that could supposedly withstand a nuclear blast, but he dies without ever telling anyone the formula. And who could forget 1989? The promise of cold fusion, of limitless energy, was basically shouted down by the scientific establishment, and its pioneers were totally disgraced.
So what is going on here? Why do these amazing ideas just vanish? Well, the reasons are as complicated as the inventions themselves. Sometimes, it's fear of economic change, just like that Roman emperor. Other times, it's the inventor's own secrecy or scientific skepticism that just refuses to believe something new. And sometimes, it might be outright suppression by powerful interests. Or, sometimes it could just be plain old bad luck. And all this really just goes to show you that the fight between innovation and the status quo, it's timeless. It doesn't matter if you're a glassmaker in ancient Rome or a chemist in the 1980s, the path for a truly game-changing idea is never, ever smooth.
So, the big takeaway here is that the version of history we have, it's not the only one that could have happened.
It's almost like it's haunted by the ghosts of these lost ideas. It's a timeline of what-ifs that makes you wonder, what would our world even look like if that glass hadn't been feared, or if that formula hadn't been lost?
Which, of course, leads us to one final pretty provocative thought. I mean, it happened in ancient Rome. It happened in the 20th century, so it's almost definitely happening today. What incredible, world-changing invention is out there right now that we might never, ever get to see?